Snellville City Council to order. And see if I can find the agenda. Butch, this is in our usual order and the cheat sheet that I have. I assume we're not going to do that since we have special guests here.
Right.
I'd like to go first to a camp first, so work out our demons over here.
We're what?
We're gonna let
Okay.
Greg go
So
first.
tonight we have Greg from Gwinnett County Office of Emergency Management. Sorry, Greg, I already forgot your last name. Swanson. I should be able to remember that. Here to discuss what our plans are in case of a national disaster or natural disaster. So, Mr. Swanson, take it away.
All right, he has to reconfigure after I disconfigure.
No worries. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you for the next few minutes and just discuss a little bit about our preparations and our plans of how we would and will and do respond to large-scale emergencies, natural disasters, and things of that sort. And I thought it would be appropriate if we used an actual event as the backdrop of our discussion. As we are approaching the beginning of hurricane season once again, one of the most large-scale disasters that impacted the United States impacted us just a few years ago, Hurricane Irma, back in 2017. There were some uniqueness to Hurricane Irma, a couple of fun facts before we get started. It was the first time in the history of the state of Georgia that all 159 counties were a declared disaster area at the same time for the same event. While that was true for the state of Georgia, it was also true for the state of Florida and South Carolina. So every county in the 3 southern states were a declared disaster area for Hurricane Irma. So I think this meets our definition of large-scale disaster and emergency. I'm a Gwinnett County native. I've been working in the Office of Emergency Management for the last 17 years. And this particular disaster would qualify as the largest that we have been a part of as far as impacts here locally in Gwinnett and our surrounding states as well. So we'll just sort of use that as a backdrop as we walk through some of our comments here. So in our work in the Office of Emergency Management, our role is to prepare the community, and not just Gwinnett County, not just the departments that report to the Board of Commissioners, but our scope is community-wide. So we work for the county, you as all the municipalities in Gwinnett. We work with our private nonprofits, our private sector hospitals. It is a whole community approach to disaster preparedness and response. And some of the work that we're going to talk about this evening, I'm going to kind of group it into some phases, if you will. Preparedness, response, and recovery. There are a few other things that we do as well, like hazard mitigation we were talking about a moment ago, but we'll skip that for tonight's presentation. But preparedness are the things that we do ahead of time. We develop plans, we purchase equipment, and when I say we, I'm talking about that whole community again, not just our small office, but we as a community prepare by planning, we purchase appropriate equipment, we train our employees and our residents and our visitors, we conduct exercises, and we do all the things that we feel prudent to do leading into a disaster event, and those are our preparedness activities. And then there's a response. And this is what you normally see. It is usually the shortest time frame of all of the work that we do, but it's what you're going to see in the media and that sort of thing during the actual event, are images of the emergency response to a disaster. So we'll talk a little bit of that in Hurricane Irma. And then recovery. Returning the community to normal, or its stage pre-disaster. And we'll talk about how we transition all of that from preparedness, response, and recovery with Irma as the backdrop. So let's talk about the early days of Hurricane Irma. Now, this was early September 2017. Now, I mentioned preparedness had a lot to do with planning and training and equipping and exercises. So we didn't begin that in September 2017. Our plans are mature. We have well-trained first responders across our community. Our hospitals are integrated with our plans, as are our private sector and our non-governmental partners. So we didn't begin planning, but as we began to learn that an event may impact us, we sharpened that preparedness approach, if you will. We began daily meetings at the Emergency Operations Center up at our office in Lawrenceville with all of our community partners involved and engaged. We began to review those appropriate plans, which sections of those we might call into play during a hurricane response. It was time to make the last minute checks of equipment and do inspections, get our rosters ready for our personnel, make sure that we could continue operations around the clock. So all of those type of preparedness activities are going on in the early days, those first 3 days, around September the 5th through the 7th. And if you'll notice, if you can see the bottom, my pointer's not going to show up on the screen. This is a hurricane track, and the storm is down around Puerto Rico at this time. This snapshot was taken on September the 6th, and if you'll notice, the proposed or forecast track of the hurricane is to go up the eastern side of Florida and make landfall in Savannah. So on the 6th of September, we were not really anticipating damaging impacts in our community, and our efforts were focused to help our coastal communities in Chatham County, and Brunswick, and Glenn County, down on the Georgia coast. The photograph in the top is a multi-agency team, mainly led by our fire department specialty teams that actually deployed toward the coast to help with search and rescues and things like that. The photograph over to the right is a local shelter that we set up. And I believe that one was at the Snellville First United Methodist Church, if memory serves correct. So we were preparing to receive evacuees from the coast. So our preparations in these early days were one of more of support. And then things quickly shifted. This snapshot is just the next day, 24 hours later. The storm is still way down here, just above the Dominican Republic, but the forecasted track had shifted well to the west, coming up through the middle of Florida, South Georgia, Southwest Georgia, and put us on the right-hand side of the storm, which is not where you want to be. But that is where we were, and this forecast track pretty much held until landfall. So our focus shifted. Now we are preparing for local damage, local response, and you can see coverage here of our first responders, again, checking their equipment, readying their supplies, and again, our meetings now, our daily meetings at the Emergency Operations Center, they involve briefings with the National Weather Service, where all of our community partners were invited in to hear firsthand from the National Weather Service the timing of what was expected and the severity of what was expected. And then from there, from those daily briefings with the Weather Service, we were able to formulate our plans and set our schedules of what we were going to implement and when we would implement it to be able to be prepared to respond to the community when the winds and the rain began. Then it really started. The forecast came to be. And so the staff there in the Emergency Operations Center, we went to around-the-clock operations. And it was fully staffed for 36 hours. We swapped out people, but the agencies remained represented. So some of the things you see there in the bottom photograph, this is a briefing. You may be able to see a lot of the displays around the room. In the center, we are able to bring in near real-time information, not only on the weather, but the status of our critical infrastructure in the county. How is the water system doing? How about our power utilities? And we're able to provide that to all of those organizations in real time, so everyone is working off the latest information possible. Also there in the Emergency Operations Center is where we really coordinate a multi-jurisdictional response. In these types of events, honestly, the jurisdictional lines just get erased right off the map. One of the photographs you see here in the top center, that is our public safety and public works section. That photograph is not staged. Every one of them were on the phone, they were on a radio, they were on a computer, and they were working. You see representatives there from various cities, from various county departments. There's state agencies there, and they're all working together to solve the problem. And they're doing it off a common set of priorities. We start with life safety. Let's continue our essential services to our residents and our visitors, and make sure we're focused on life safety first. And so they are sharing personnel, they're sharing equipment, they're sharing resources across all of those jurisdictional lines to formulate the response there to the hurricane. So moving from response into recovery, again, the Emergency Operations Center was a focal point for the coordination of those activities. As the wind subsided and the rain stopped falling, our first priorities were to open roadways, open bridges, get our infrastructure restored, get the power restored. So we were working with utility companies and all of our public works departments across the community to do those types of things. And then we transitioned into damage assessment. Now, I know the map on the far right is very difficult to read, but our damage assessment teams went out here in these couple of days with the 11th and 12th, and we documented over 200 structures, homes and businesses that had received substantial damage during the hurricane. And as you can see, it's widespread. I mean, this is the bottom, way down here around Snellville and Rockdale County, all the way up to Sugar Hill. The complete county was covered. There was no one spared of damage. And so from there, we helped the community recover in a variety of ways. One of the ways that we assisted from our office was to connect individuals and our governments with federal disaster aid programs. The Public Assistance Program reimburses certain eligible expenses to municipalities and other governmental entities for things like debris management, cleaning up debris and limbs, moving it from the right of way, getting it chipped up and disposed of. Also overtime for your public safety, your public works employees, and other eligible emergency action expenses. The individual assistance program is just that. It helps households and homeowners with small business loans that are very low interest rates, or maybe some other type of grant disaster assistance. So we coordinated with the Georgia Emergency Management Agency and the Federal Emergency Management Agency to bring those recovery programs in. And the last thing I'd like to mention is a theme throughout any situation, any disaster, any large-scale emergency response is communicating and informing the public. It's very important. And you see I have it here where it spans all of our phases. Our attempt is to coordinate our message so that there are not disparate messages going out from a variety of entities. And so we work with our public information officers who already know one another. You have your spokespeople, you have your channels, you have your methods of communicating with the residents. We certainly don't want to stand in the way of any of that. We want to encourage you to do that here in the city, but we also want to coordinate our messages. So the message coming out of the city is the same or similar to that is coming from other cities and from the county itself. So our mantra is really the same message, but multiple channels. Some of the examples you see here, this was a live press conference that we did from the Emergency Operations Center. We invited all of the news agencies in the Metro Atlanta market. They all attended, so we were doing live press conferences from the Emergency Operations Center. Our combined public information officials were working together to coordinate that message. And then the other examples are just examples of how that message was getting out to the public. You see websites from the county. This is a social media post from Norcross, a social media post from Lilburn. Here's something from the county school system, And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't have something from the City of Snellville website. So I was asked to cover 15 minutes, and I have been talking for 14. So I will be, I know you have a very, very busy agenda. I will be happy to entertain any questions. Certainly Chief Perry knows how to get a hold of me if anybody wants to email or correspond with me later. We're here and we work for you on an everyday basis and on the disaster day. So anything we can ever do for the city, we are here for you. So
I'm assuming the need for your services doesn't necessarily have to be countywide. Like if we had a situation here in Snellville area, you'd be able to work with us with that, correct?
yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
You are welcome.
And thank you extra special for being very timely.
And I just want to say, Greg, that I know very few folks who communicate as well and often as you and your office do. It's, you keep us updated and we really appreciate that.
Well, you're welcome. And we want to hit the mark. So if we're not hitting the mark, if we're doing too much or too little, we expect to hear from you. Let us know.
We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much. You'll have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have discussion of the 2040 comprehensive plan with Jacobs Engineering. And Jason, will you introduce our speaker?
Yes. Glenn. I always say JJ, Jacobs Engineering. Glenn is here to talk to us about, really, I know you guys want to hear most about the schedule. He's got a little bit to just kind of kick it off and then bring it home, and I'll let him take it from there.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me. I'm Jonathan Corona. I'm standing in for Jim Somerville this evening. I'm sure some of you know him, but he and I actually both worked on the previous comprehensive plan and the LCI update for the city of Snellville. So glad to be back. Thank you for having us. We just wanted to go through the proposed schedule. You have a hard copy in front of you. It's a little more detailed than what I have here on the slide. I just wanted to go through each of these phases and how this might transcend. But we do have a deadline, adoption deadline of February 28th, which is established by the Georgia Department of Community Affairs. So it does need to be adopted by then. We tried to account for at least 3 months for review time. The DCA generally finishes their comments within 30 days of getting that transmittal, but we like to allow for enough time to address any of their comments, and if you have any comments after they give their comments to the city, we just want to have enough time to address that before you all officially adopt it. So we built in a little under 3 months for that in the schedule, as you'll see. So just backing up to phase 1, which is the kickoff, and then moving into the needs and opportunities. We'll hopefully get a start in June, move that through July, establish the community vision and goals, and hopefully, of course, this is confirming what was established in the previous plan. I think you all have a great advantage of having a good foundation like the previous plan. So that can move pretty swiftly from July through September. And then implementation planning from September to October, and then finalization October through February. And that's such a long period of time because DCA will have 30 days to review it, and then we'll have a little bit more time before you adopt. And you can adopt, of course, before that deadline of February 28th. We recommend it. So I just wanted to answer any questions you all had. I do want to preface that the draft we provided you does start in June. Depending on this discussion, we will be using Maryland Hall at Hall Planning to as a subcontractor for some of the work that does need to be done. So all of that contracting and just the paperwork, it could take a few weeks to finish that. So this may shift a couple of weeks as well, but just wanted to give you at least a foundation to go off of. So glad to take any of your questions about the schedule or scope.
Is there any action that we need to take at this point?
I am, I think the timing is good. We just needed we know it's an election year. So we know there'll be campaigning and people doing things, and so we just wanted to make sure this gives us plenty of time to meet our 2/28 adoption date. But obviously the note there, start date may vary depending on contract timing. So right now, the next meeting is June the 12th. We don't have another meeting in June.
Right.
We need to adopt that contract on June the 12th and get started to meet this timeline. So, how does everybody feel about the dates vis-a-vis everything that's going on in this year?
I think we have to make it doable.
Yeah.
We don't have a
Well,
choice.
You know, it's,
Room to wiggle to.
yeah.
And I will say the engagement and all the stakeholder meetings that are a part of the schedule, we can't really start those until we have our kickoff meeting with you all.
Right.
And you'll notice that in the schedule as well. So if that does have to shift, I know you have 2 meetings a month, right? So
Not in
hopefully-
June.
Not for June, but July, we're back in
Yeah.
business.
Okay, if we need to shift any of the engagement back to July, I think that we might have some flexibility there. Like I said, we like for 3 months at the end of the process,
Right.
but we can compress it if we need to. Ideally, we don't, but that's possible.
So our first meeting in June is the 12th. Would we be able to adopt or have a contract by the 12th to go ahead and have on our agenda? Because if we're able to do that, then the rest of it is,
And we'll get that out to you ahead of time to take a look at.
Okay, yeah, I'll work with Jason and to see.
Yeah, and we
make
already
sure
worked, I talked to Jim about that a little bit too, and because it was with us the last time and Chuck was involved, like it was pretty easy, so he doesn't feel like we're gonna have to do any crazy, like, tweaks to what we had. It should be smooth,
Right.
should be.
right.
Yeah, if you can send me a Word version of it so that I can compare it against our last one.
Sure.
Okay. Easy.
Yeah, it's one of the benefits of working with the same company. They already know the document and
If we
all
need
the
to
parties involved.
have a called work session in early,
Stop it.
well, I'm just saying, we'll to make it happen, you know.
Right, but the first step is actually putting them under contract, so hopefully that should be pretty straightforward and smooth. And then in July, the hard work will start.
Yes, sir. And it is hard work, and like I said, you have a good foundation, and I think it'll be a lot of confirming kind of what was previously established.
Right. Anybody have any questions?
All right.
You're off the
In
hook.
and out, dude.
Thank you all. Appreciate it. Just right back to Smyrna.
Plan.
Sorry, good luck.
No.
Next time.
And I just remember last time, a lot of the stakeholders, the community review team, we developed a lot of good appointees, like Terry Corey from those meetings. So be thinking about recruiting, getting good people involved, and then we'll keep them involved.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll go back to the order of business. Do we have any correspondence to review?
I have one, but I'm including that, it's one of your handouts
Okay.
there, and I'll just
So
talk
that'll-
about that in the project
All right,
update.
And is there a city attorney's report?
Just briefly, we had a good call with more members of the management team, property management at it's Universal, I believe is the name of the company, but it manages Presidential Commons. We had they've already got a couple estimates, but they indicated that to repair the fence. Indicated they were having trouble with understanding exactly what needed to be done, so we had decided, she sent me a site plan, and we'd have Johnny add some pictures with the site plan, but our Mayor Pro Tem had a wonderful idea and said that we knew somebody that had access to a drone. And that it would be really effective, and I agreed 100%, if we could have that council person with a drone actually record that so we can show exactly what the problems are, kind of right up close and personal. So if we could do that, that would be huge. So they understood that was an issue. They didn't understand the gravity of the other issues that we've had complaints about. There are citations still outstanding. What I'm intending to do, the individuals who have got citations, such as the Ashley truck people that have been there 3 different times, they still get to come to court and talk to the judge. The shopping center, I'm willing to hold their citations, to continue them, hold them over their head until we see what they get done. Because I'm more interested in getting a global fix. They have assured me, I sent them copies of the conditions of zoning, that they're reaching out to their, all the managers of their stores, again, explaining to them the issues. So, they, as I said, they seemed sincere. I know that they've talked to Butch. They knew Johnny Green's name, by his name, but, obviously, still nothing has happened, so, but I felt good about it, that we're gonna get some action. I'm gonna be sending them a log of all the, Chief's been great. Every time, someone they get a call, there's a log that's generated, I get an email of the log, and then he automatically goes on and has them send me a copy of the police report. And so that way I can communicate directly with Tricia Berry and say, here's exactly what they are gonna do, what's gonna happen. And it's just real orderly, so it's a really good system.
Has the subject of gates come up?
We talked about the gates. Their concern, they said they've had gates, is that the gates, usually the truckers just bump through them and tear them up. Again, Todd had a great suggestion that while that may be true, it's a good opportunity to put some big signs there.
And cameras.
So we've addressed all those kind of thoughts. They haven't committed to those, so we'll see how letters work and getting the fence fixed, and then we'll go from there, I think.
Okay.
We'll see. But they seem to not want to keep getting citations and have to fly down here, and I assured them they were going to if we didn't get it figured out, because this was not going away, and that it was my number one pain. So,
I guess it is.
Yeah, I really want to thank Chief Perry for including us whenever there's an incident. I assume we're doing all of them.
Yes, that's helpful.
Letting us know that
Right.
something is happening over at the shopping center. Because
and
you have so far.
Okay.
we've gotten kind of spoiled with them, because I notice on all of them the response time is usually 3 or 4 minutes. Now, one of the last ones we had, there was I had noticed there was a gap of like 20 minutes, and Chief texted me and said, well, we were out on a shooting, that there had been a shooting,
I guess that's
and
good.
and that makes perfect sense, what they were doing. So, and Barry and Tricia understood that completely, so, or at least they told me they did.
Thank you very much, and I see that because we had special guests, I ran out of order once again. Just to review our agenda, call to order, invocation. Who do we have tonight for invocation? Okay. Yeah, it's actually on, and then we have pledge to the flag by the winner of the South Gwinnett Inner Me Beauty Pageant. Ceremonial matters, we have the National Poppy Day Proclamation. We're going to have the American Legion Auxiliary number 232 here and members. Then we'll adopt minutes. Under invited guests, we have Dr. Alexis Williams along with her husband Derek Williams, who are going to introduce the scholarship winners and the winners of both the male and female of the Inner Me pageant and the distinguished gentleman. Committee department reports, we actually have them tonight. We'll have a Parks and Rec Advisory Board by Norman Carter. Downtown Development Authority, Don Britt is out sick, so we're gonna skip that. And then we'll have the Snellville Youth Commission, where our mayor and vice mayor, they have different titles than we do, will be there for some public good.
gonna be a little bit longer because we're gonna award the seniors some medals.
Okay,
We're gonna not make it too long though.
okay. Well, do what you can. Then we'll have approval of the agenda. And under public hearing, we have the opportunity for people to provide either written or oral comments on the proposed operating budget for next year. And then item B, the second reading of SUP 2301, consideration and recommendation on application by AGN Glass to use the old
Jiffy Lube.
Jiffy. In front of you, in your pile of papers that was handed out this evening, there's some conditions. Welcome, Mayor.
How are you?
Fabulous. You just snuck right in. I'm going to turn this over to you. in
No,
just a
keep
second.
going, keep going.
That outline the, after talking with Chuck, some conditions that sounded like they would be in keeping us from setting a precedent where we'd be able to bring them in compliance with the majority of the town center overlay district requirements, and yet still be able to say yes if you also deemed that your desire. So, as I said, if you could pass that down to the mayor, so she'll be aware of what they are. If anybody has any questions about those, they're pretty straightforward. Just no outdoor storage of vehicles or materials. There will be, if the adjacent properties were to redevelop, they have to bring their landscaping up to the town center overlay district requirements and interparcel access, which would only be to the parcel to the west because the old Waffle House property is already plenty of access, probably too much access. So if anybody has any questions about that.
Jason, on that one, do you know how to pronounce the property owner's name?
I don't think he's here. I think he's Zhao.
Zhao.
Close enough.
Okay.
I mean,
Just say Mr. Luke
Yeah.
Yeah.
or Miss Luke.
it's just the applicant is here, but I think well, he
Okay.
was last time.
Okay.
The actual company.
What's the condition of the property now? I mean, how,
I mean, it's a 30-year-old block building.
no, I mean, but it's reasonably clean and neat?
Well, we'll do an inspection.
It's been empty.
It,
Or no?
it is code enforcement
It'll
issues.
It'll
Okay.
have to get handled before they, but
Yeah.
this guy wasn't gonna do anything.
Sure,
He got
so-
approval to make sure he didn't do the work for the owner, or wasn't gonna do anything for him. So he referenced that at the planning commission. said-
And they won't issue an occupation tax certificate if there's any outstanding code violations.
And hopefully it'll give us leverage on the
Waffle House?
Waffle House. Because that's when it's code. You sure you don't want to take this over?
She's enjoying the rest.
Yeah. Item C, first reading of UDO 23-02, consideration and action of amendments to the text of the Unified Development Ordinance UDO, City of Snellville.
You want a little, this one's
Yeah,
gonna be a big one.
either you or Butch, someone
Just-
want to give us,
So what happened, for whatever reason, about a year ago, right, the legislation actually went through to where administrative variances came under fire. Probably what happened is somebody built 2 foot over and an administrative variance was issued, somebody got mad. Anyway, so now what the state has mandated that all administrative variances are handled like regular variances now. Now, it doesn't mean it has to go to the VOA, but it has to have
Public hearing.
a hearing, it has to be advertised, it has to have letters, and you're talking about anything that's even administrative, like a 2-foot setback. It was that, there's like a few exceptions that you can still do. But the flexibility that we built into the code for administrative variances as far as architecture and stuff like that was to help push people through without bogging them down for stuff that didn't need it. But now, as a result, it was either I become the Board of Appeals for all of that and then create a whole nother hearing schedule. So what we've proposed is that all those administrative variances outside of the state code And now we'll go back to the board again, or you guys will handle them on the front end as part of the rezoning. None of that changes. But all the stuff where we had flexibility, it's gonna go back to the board. And now if you want.
Board of Appeals.
Board of Appeals, and that will become the process for most of it. And some of the stuff that we use all the time, we just made it into the code. We changed the code. Some stuff like, for example, back when we allowed the internet automobile services and certain things, we charged them $100, and they're everywhere in office and OP with no cars. The one that's unsightly, is raised, but in order to have that happen, they had to come up here and we're getting $100 for the application to verify that everything was okay. But we're probably doing, there's probably 50 of those a month. They last for like a week and then they die off and they come back. They don't ever make it. So we just wrote that into the code. If you can do it NOP under these circumstances, yada, yada, yada.
So it doesn't have to go through that process?
Yes, because before it was just to get a little signature from Butch, and we had a letter written that we attached to it, and it just became very administrative. Now, we would have to send out a letter, propose a hearing date, conduct the hearing, so then it kind of creates a quasi-departmental hearing board, and I just don't feel like that's efficient, honestly. If they want to go through, they either comply with the code or they have to do the whole thing. So that's where it's at now, and it was probably 25 sections that John had to tweak because they're all in the code. Isn't that pretty much?
Yeah, and it goes into effect July 1st, I believe, right?
Right, so.
They passed it last year, gave everyone till July 1st.
It's
and
a big
it's
change.
a big
Yeah,
change.
I do remember updating that.
I mean, literally, the alternative was Jason having to pick a day once a month and go down and say, okay,
Yeah, which would have been okay.
it's administrative hearing day, and you got to come down, and so it just
Then the letters, the signs, and
Yeah.
then the time it takes to get the paper in, it just was like another 12 hearings a year for John and I to manage, or the department. Just, they can just go to the board if it's that serious.
Okay, so we definitely need to put our nose to the grindstone and look into exactly what's being proposed there.
And there's a table too, kind of shows you changes, what the administrative was before, because you'll get lost in that thing's like this big. My eyes glass over when I look at
Well,
it. The table helps, you can see the decisions, but kind of forced to do it.
So does anybody have any questions about the first read?
Not the first reading.
But it is substantial enough that it's good that we're discussing it now, so it doesn't hit
So
us in the
this
teeth.
table is in the UDO?
No, it should be in part of those documents. John always does a slip sheet with all the changes, so you can kind of see the dirty stuff if you want to get into the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
But it's just, there's probably 20 things we had to take out.
I don't remember seeing it in the agenda packet, but
I'll look again. I mean,
we'll follow up and make sure it's out to everybody.
Should be a summary list. I'll find
Just give you an idea of the impacts.
Yeah,
It's in there.
so, oh, it is? Okay, maybe mine just didn't download
What
it all.
did she say?
It is in there.
Okay.
Okay, under consent agenda, we have consideration and action on adoption of proposed amendments to the city personnel rules and regulations needed to reflect changes in applicable federal and state law, as well as to align policy with city charter. There were some outstanding issues. We had a personnel attorney who worked with the city for quite a while, and
Yeah, the key thing there is align the policy with the city charter.
Yeah.
We didn't receive any feedback, no issues from the staff, so that's why we felt comfortable putting it on the consent agenda.
yeah, and they had it for 30 days to give comment, and no one gave comment. Next is old business, we have none. Under new business, we have first read of ordinance 2023-06, adoption of the fiscal year 2023-24 budget for each fund of the city of Snellville, and allowing folks to give written or oral comments. So,
So we're allowing comments tonight?
Yeah.
yep,
Have we gotten any written?
by law.
That's in the public hearing,
That's under the
where
public hearing.
they're able to comment. And
That's
no,
the way-
and it's been put out there every way possible, so.
Okay.
I'll talk a little bit about
Oh,
it in
that's
the.
right, it is just waive. I thought it's I thought on the, it doesn't matter.
We get 2 items.
Then item B, the first read of ordinance 2023-07, an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinance, Snellville, Georgia, Chapter 2, Article 5, say 4. Yeah, I knew it's not 5. Boards and commissions repeal conflicting ordinance Division 5, which again goes along with the update of our personnel policies. So again, just first read. Then council reports, then mayor's report, which thankfully we'll be able to hear because she's here. And now we'll move on to Butch's fabulous project updates.
You've got 4 sheets of paper in front of you, and we'll just kind of go over those as we go through the project update. Town Center, construction progress. The Grove Hardscape punch list is being worked on. The splash pad passed inspection. One thing in the training meetings today, Matt found out that we have to treat that splash pad and the fountain like a pool. We have to take chlorine readings every day and make sure that it's within the standards.
We knew that from their Duluth tour.
Yeah. I was
Yeah.
gonna say
He said it was the
Yeah.
biggest above-ground pool.
Yeah, well, it's I was a pool boy for a couple of months in Florida, and we're gonna have to find somebody cheap to do that. The Grove outdoor furniture is 90% delivered. Craig is not here, but Public Works, thank goodness, they're storing it for us. We're looking for a contractor who can come, put it all together and place it. I mean, there's a lot of work to Adirondack chairs, tables, metal tables, umbrellas. So we'll get back with you on that. We might just have an outside work session, and I'll provide coolers of whatever beverage you guys would like, and we'll just bring our Alvin wrenches and put stuff together. But no, we'll.
It's an Allen wrench.
How many,
I forgot what movie that was in.
Man called Otto.
Yeah, Otto, Man Called Otto.
what's the number of fixtures that have to be put together?
Let's see, all right, Matt, help me here. I think there are 16 Adirondacks, there are 13 tables, there are, 52 chairs, there are, how many umbrellas? 13 umbrellas. So it's pretty substantial.
I know people in the property staging business,
Yeah.
and they do a lot of putting stuff together like that. I'll pass some names along
Okay.
to you.
Great.
Along with Jay, he wasn't here, so.
Parents would put boys together before Christmas.
Let's see, sidewalk improvements. Oh, the kiosks are in place. We're getting AT&T to hardwire back to our control room in the elevator tower. So then we'll be able to fully program those, and those will be ready to turn on and be available when we, probably sometime in July, open the library and Thrive and have kind of a soft opening for the Grove as a whole. Sidewalk improvements, good progress on Skyland and Pinehurst. Those are easements. I'm kind of competing against Larry and Matt there. I've got, right of way I have to purchase for the intersection project, so it's a little more difficult when you're negotiating price with people. But we're going to round 2 of those meetings, and I anticipate some success there. The pre-bid meeting.
Can I go back to Town Center real quick?
You sure can.
Just give everybody an update. I had a meeting with the Snells about 2 weeks ago. If y'all remember, the E.R. Snell Family Foundation gave the city $500,000 for public art and everything. And so we talked about the things that have been done over at the Grove and where we've got money budgeted. And they're gonna allow that money to be used for the kiosks, which were around $135,000. Also, in the Grove, I don't know if y'all remember on some of the earlier drawings, there was, when you walked onto the sidewalk into the Grove from the apartment street. I keep forgetting which name is which. From that street, we had originally had like a design, like a metal
Archway.
sculpture or something, archway coming in that we took out for cost. They're gonna fund that. So
And Michael's working on a
Michael.
proposal for that.
Michael Kidd's looking at, what to do for that. And also, the other thing that they were gonna help with was, I told them about, the statues, we had planned to use the granite benches, which are the steps for the schools that are out front, to set the statues on. And Butch got a quote from one of the contractors over here, and they wanted $20,000 just to move one of those. So, Michael Kidd was gonna have a bench built. Well, I, of course, talked to the Snells about that, and, it was kind of funny. They were all like, "What? $20,000?" And, so Robin Snell, he was like, "Well, show me those benches." And we went out there and he goes, "It's right here?" He thought it was gonna be really hard to get in and out. And I said, "No, really, all you gotta do is pick it up. We can clear off, you can drive it across the street and plop it down." So he said they will arrange for all of that to be done. And then the other thing was the bell tower that's in front of the old city hall now. The bell that's in there is from the consolidated school. And the Snellville Historical Society had Chad Smith had designed the arbor thing that it's in. And now that the church has got that property up for sale, they're concerned about getting that moved. So again, Michael Kidd is working on finding a place for that. And then the Snells said they will take care of the moving on that as well.
Wow.
So, yeah. So those are some of the things that money's being applied for. And of course, they paid for the statues of Snell and Sawyer that'll be going
And they will
there.
pay for the pavilion.
Yes. Well, no, there'll be a little bit left for the pavilion.
Yeah, so you're pretty much eating up.
By the
most
time
of
you
it.
do that, yeah. So, okay, sorry. Just
No,
wanted to let everybody know.
Let's see, pre-bid meeting tomorrow on the sidewalk. Hopefully, we have some good contractors there. Next item, curbside recycling program now fully operational. All parties have been communicating regularly. Won't have any more gaps there. The recycling center business has really picked up. And like we talked about, we're still pushing on the Snellville Pavilion. Mayor and council input. Jacobs was here tonight. I'm glad you guys are okay with that schedule. We will have a contract back to you on that June 12th date for approval. And we're just, we've heard a lot. We're just waiting on new development proposals. I know a lot of discussion going on there. Package sales, that's where the discussion has really halted. We haven't had a lot of questions lately. I'm hoping for several applications on June the 5th. Because I haven't heard anything, I haven't changed that June the 5th deadline date. I assume everybody's working and we'll have something.
You're gonna have a lot of applications.
Well-
Yeah.
We've been contacted.
Okay,
and
okay.
So, and. there's
Well, I
a
kind of
lot
shut them
people.
down on our part. I said,
Yeah.
we're gonna have to review them. I can't tell you how to write
Well,
it.
and we're not giving that information, but
Yeah.
we've had a lot of questions about locations and those kind of things.
Okay.
And,
Good,
we kind of give them the same, we read them what it says, so.
yeah.
but,
That's
yeah, it
basically
sounds-
it.
Sounds like there's quite a few. being prepared.
Briscoe Park, there is a need to coordinate a group recreation center visit. In looking at some of the facilities out there that are available to go look at. So you get an idea. I mean, we're just so early in the planning process, but you really need to see what's out there, do a needs assessment, and kind of create a vision for what you would like to see in a new facility at Briscoe Park. We will continue to coordinate with the county on that, but we thought that Lisa and Matt, they worked on 3 Saturdays in July. I don't know if that's, good or not, taking a Saturday. But the 15th, 22nd, or 29th Lisa has contacted Ackworth. Dalton is actually Whitfield County. They have a new facility up there that's an amazing facility, and it's about half the price that I thought it would be. And then Gwinnett at George Pierce Park has a facility that is very good, would be very good to look at because there's a senior element to it. I found out that TSW is designing 2 new rec centers. They've already done several. 2 new rec centers in Cherokee that look really amazing. So maybe you stop off there, we stop off there on the way, but we're going to be in touch with you about good days. Saturdays don't look good for people? I remember when we went and looked at,
I can do the 22nd or 29th.
What were the dates again? I'm sorry.
the 15th, 22nd, 29th.
Okay.
Or is a weekday better? I mean, with school out,
Yeah, because the weekend before we head back to school with the kids.
And 29th.
Yeah,
It's gonna be kind of
No, we have
tough.
If we
SYC
could-
retreat.
Really? You're heading back that early?
Oh, yeah.
Well,
When?
earlier than that, but
Wow.
Yeah,
So-
that's like,
earlier than that.
Might I recommend we look and see if there's anything down in the Savannah area, since we're gonna be down there for convention, that we might be able to look at while we're down there?
Yep.
As far as if we're just going to look at rec centers.
yeah,
There's been a lot of development in the surrounding cities around Savannah. so
Richmond Hill,
Yeah, there may be something there that we could look at, get that one out of the way, so.
okay, good deal.
It'd be helpful to me if we could leave, give me an hour in the morning at the farmer's market, then to turn it over to Jess.
We thought about,
Could
you know,
do
it
that.
basically it'd be 9 to 5.
Just give us time to get the market open if that's possible, because that's when we have the biggest need for people to.
Yeah.
I told Jennifer if we come up there, she'll have to have lunch for
She'll have to
everybody.
entertain us.
See?
We'll expect it.
The lake lowering is very close to complete. I don't know if y'all have been to Briscoe or not. Wall construction, maintenance facility, both in progress. You know, starting to see a little dirt moving and some construction progress. So that's,
How long was the lake wall gonna take?
Matt, was it?
3 months?
Was it 90 days? Yeah.
Butch, can I ask a Briscoe Park question?
Yeah.
The new Parks and Recs maintenance building that's being built, how long will access be fenced off for the students that had been going through there? Do you have any idea?
Until it's complete. We've already had some vandalism,
Well,
so.
we've had them jumping the fence and going through the community garden, so I was just wondering,
Okay.
what's.
Well, see, I was out there one morning and talked to about 20 kids, tried to explain to it, and they went, we have cleared out a path
Yeah.
from between the library and Public Works to go back and go through the gate out there. Which basically it's gonna be a trail extension. But we've gotta talk, I think one of the adjacent homeowners put a padlock on that fence. And I've knocked on the doors, haven't gotten anybody, so we're just gonna have to cut it.
I've got bolt cutters.
Yeah.
Could we get some signage on Marigold to direct people to the path?
Yeah. When did that happen, Gretchen?
I just got the email today,
Okay.
so I don't, did she say when it happened?
I don't see how that'd be a shortcut to anything.
Well,
it was about 7:30 at night too. That
No.
was strange.
No,
What
that's
what
not
was
going to
the,
school
what was the
then.
benefit?
No, that's somebody getting into the
He said it
garden,
was
that's not
7:30
somebody
at
cutting
night,
through.
she said it was students cutting through, didn't she?
Yeah.
Night school.
Whatever, I don't know, but I just wondered,
Okay.
They do any damage?
I don't think so. She kind of escorted them out.
Well, I'm glad school is gonna be out shortly. No happier than you guys
So,
are.
yeah,
I know.
she said they weren't They weren't ugly about it at all, she just,
Yeah, those kids with, that I've talked to, I mean, they were, disappointed, but they,
Are
showed them
they
where to go.
Middle school or high school age?
High school, yeah.
So continue.
North in Wisteria, we talked a little bit about the right-of-way search there. And one of the items you have, one of the 4 items that you have in your packet is an overview of Phase 1 for Larry Kaiser Collaborative Infrastructure's fees. This is basically the public outreach effort on the traffic calming. And it's $42,000, which will allow us to prepare and get through the public education meetings for all of the projects that we are potentially going to be working on. And, Larry says it would be completed in about 5 weeks, but I need some input on that. I can bring a contract back with you next time, but it's really the first step if we want to seriously consider moving on this project. We've got to get moving, and it's not going to be successful without good public education and outreach. So, just be thinking about that. We've got 3 weeks till the next meeting. I can have Larry put it in contract form and bring it back to you. Let's see. A couple other items you have in your, you have just a report from Greg Perry. We, in this budget, as we talked about in our meetings, this budget is basically, if it had a label, it'd be taking care of our employees. The salary increases are 99% of the budget increase. And this is, we asked Greg, how's it going? We had the emergency change in PD. Initially, they were the first to see the salary increases, and a very positive report from Greg. That last paragraph really says it all. Our current situation is that we only have 2 open officer positions. Since the pay improvement plan, we've had no officers leave voluntarily from the department. The plan has completely stopped any retention issues that was unstoppable prior to April 2023. So I think that tells everybody we've had a positive impact there, positive impact in Parks and Recreation, and hopefully in the future that translates over into the Public Works Department. The final piece of information, we are working our way through all of our special funds. ARPA is one of those we're talking about SPLOST and other financial items in the budget, special fund budgets. This is just an update on ARPA, what we did in FY23, what's projected in FY24, where our revenue is coming from. There's a line item in the ARPA budget for intergovernmental revenues, and that's where all that will go. So just take a look at this. We'll have some. There never changes between the first reading and the second reading of the budget. There are always a few changes, and so look at this. I'll have SPLOST information for you shortly. I'd love to have Smith-Built's number on the market building to put in there and give you a clear picture of SPLOST expenditures, but I don't have that at this time. But take a look at this. This is really the first piece. It'll be ARPA. It'll be the 2017 SPLOST, 2014 SPLOST. Basically is played out, and the remainder of funds there are going towards the North and Wisteria project. So just take a look at that, and we'll talk more about the budget before the final adoption in June.
So are we still anticipating breaking ground on the market in July?
Yes.
Okay. Have they gotten the approval of Gwinnett County from the permitting process yet?
Not yet.
Do we have a vendor yet?
What's that?
Do we have a vendor yet?
Meetings are ongoing with possible vendors, and Shannon is trying to shake down financial information from Jamal's backers. And I think, we need to have a, telephone conversation with Shannon. That's kind of where we are.
So you taking over, Mayor? Or you want me to finish out the meeting?
That was a who me look.
What?
All right, so the next thing on our agenda, the work session agenda is D, addressing funding through the American Rescue Plan ARPA funds for the community small business sustain.
Okay, so last time we were here, can you please pass this to Matt? Thank you. You wanted like a proposal, like show me some numbers, right? Passing it down. Just put some notes. Okay? All right, so I came up with some figures because we are going to discuss the qualifications of the small businesses, what would qualify them. We also spoke about that the businesses, that they will have to do an online application of some kind, okay? So I was proposing, because we have approximately 2,000 businesses in Snellville, okay? And I know when we had a budget meeting this week, there was about 6,700,000 that was still left over from the budget. So my proposal is 500,000 allotted with an additional $8,160 because of Dave questioning last session, okay, how are we gonna pay these people, where are we getting the money from to pay them? So 8,160 is what I came up with, $17 an hour. The person can work 40 hours a week for 3 months to set it all up for us, okay? And so 500,000 for a total of 508,160 of the ARPA funding. So 1,000 small businesses will receive $500 on a first come, first served basis on the online application. Okay? So are there any questions?
The last meeting, you had laid out some criteria, and that doesn't seem to line up with this. So,
How is that? Like what?
well, you stated that this was for businesses that were affected by COVID.
Correct.
So
That made 50,000 or less,
right.
right?
So
Okay.
this is slightly different.
Why is it slightly different? I'm not understanding.
Well, none of that is here. I
It's just the criteria.
Yeah, I
It's
just wanted the information that you provided last time, so we could review it, so I could wrap my head around it. So that's still in play, and this too. So both of those together?
Both of those together.
Okay. Could we get copies of the stuff you presented
Yeah,
last time?
sure.
Okay.
Which wants to make copies, or if we can make copies. I don't know if
Or
we can make
I can
copies,
scan
or
it
just
with
email
my
it.
tablet right now and send it out to everybody.
So
That's not a
Solange, are
problem.
these privately owned businesses or are they
Franchises.
Franchises
of
that-
national businesses? Or
No,
what
they're
are
more,
we talking about?
they're more franchises, business, it doesn't, just any type of small business. I mean, we're not gonna be too selective on it, because the criteria is they need to have made, 50,000 or less. Okay, so that
In
means
what
that they're in
time frame?
hardship, they're in the.
What time frame are you talking about?
Say it again?
The time frame for that 50,000 or
Well,
less?
The time frame for that is for the last 2 years, the COVID years, to show what they have.
So
because that's what
20 and 21? Or 21 and 19?
21, 22, 21, 22.
And so this would qualify anybody who's got a small business that's selling Tupperware or Mary Kay
No,
or?
this is, no,
home-based
this,
businesses?
it can
Home-based
be a
businesses.
home-based business as well. But remember, I spoke about, like I said, for the last 2 years, under 50,000. This does not include like big businesses or anything like that, okay? No pyramids, no real estate investment, no trust, adult entertainment, we're not doing that, okay? And so on, so,
So that'll be in the criteria not to submit if you're in those.
right,
of
exactly, and those
businesses.
type of businesses, yeah.
So
We're not
are you gonna go by
s-
like the NIC codes or something like that?
Say it again?
Are you gonna go by like the NAICS codes or to be able to weed out who's allowed and who's not allowed to submit?
Well, we have to be clear. We have to be clear on the criteria, clear on the verbiage of who can submit and who can't, you know.
And the criteria is gonna be, you said that they have to submit tax returns?
They have to submit tax returns, right? Because they have to apply for the license every year. So they are going to submit the tax returns. And so we can see how much they make. Because otherwise anybody can come
Right.
and say, hey, you know, I made less than 50, but we need to check it out too, so. I think that's appropriate for the 500,000 allotted for
And did
1,000
you
small
check,
businesses.
did you check the ARPA funding requirements that, do we have to certify how they use that money? Have you checked the requirements of ARPA
You know.
if we
as
give
lo-
money out in a program like that?
Yeah, so the money can be used for, they can, if they have a physical location for the rent, they can pay their rent with it. Up to 50% can be used for the home business. I wrote it up. They can maybe get business supplies if they need anything, as far as business employee salary. So companies who, or businesses, let me say, who couldn't hire or were short-staffed and just didn't have the funding to hire an employee, an extra employee, can use that money maybe to go ahead and start offsetting and hiring an employee, so having employee salary. And they can also upgrade their technology, you know, because things are changing constantly, you know. And I feel businesses that strive, for us, it's good in the city. You know, we don't always have to look at just the big buck businesses. You know, like in the Grove, we will have big businesses in there, you know, not small moms and pop, small businesses. So, yes or no?
There'll be
Don't you
some,
like it?
yeah, there's some small mom and pop.
Yeah, but,
So how does
so,
this program differ from what the county already has set up? So
okay, so the county, as a matter of fact, I went to a meeting this week with the county, with the budget, and they were talking about small businesses. Now, the way we understood it is that they had their money, okay? But the thing is, it's so hard for people to qualify for it, because there are a gazillion people that jump and flock on that money. So it's very hard for them to be able to apply and, or actually qualify to get the money to do anything. Okay, so that's why we're relying on our business money, money inside our city for our residents, for our businesses.
Well, I think you'll wind up, if you're gonna pass out $500 checks, I think you're gonna wind up with a flood here as well.
Why?
But, you know, as a business owner, I'd have a drawback of providing 2 years of my tax returns to a government agency to receive $500 too. You know, I don't know that that's
No, but
worth
if
it
they're
for me.
in
but-
hardship, people are willing to show anything for the help that they can get,
But,
you know, so.
and this probably would have been great when we were in the dead of COVID. I don't know if a business was really struggling because of COVID. At this point, they're
Are you-
they're either not there anymore or they're,
And that is a shame, that is a
Right,
shame, because we should
exactly.
have helped them before.
Right.
But there are still businesses out there that are struggling.
but if they're struggling now, I'm not sure that it's, COVID is the proximate cause, because,
Well, they've
The
been
economy is coming.
struggling since COVID.
right,
Right, they've been struggling since COVID.
but,
And it hasn't really picked up for some of them.
okay. So it's a good starting point.
And at $17 an hour,
That's-
I mean, Because this would be the person to come in and set the whole program up, so you'd need to find somebody experienced.
And
Do you know
somebody
if that's
that
doable?
could be vetted to look at people's tax returns. That's not usually a $17 an hour person.
You want to do it 18? Well, we can pay them more.
Yeah, well.
Which are
yeah,
going to
it's
like,
just-
well, 18 is too much.
Just thinking about my tax documents, turning them over to somebody, I think there's some liability associated there. But
Yeah, but you need to still
Again,
turn
it's good
over your taxes to renew your license. Is that a liability? If they want to renew the license and they have to.
You don't have to turn in your tax return for your business
Tax returns
license.
for the business license?
no, you just.
Fill out a form.
You fill out a form and you're certifying that that's your revenues.
Jason, we need
But
to
that-
audit that.
Which you're subject to an audit. They could come in and
Right.
request your books, but,
We don't request tax
but
hands.
Yeah, that's what I thought I
So you
read.
just scan the documents so you guys all have it, right? You send it
Yep,
out?
yeah,
to them?
I went ahead and
Okay.
sent it out to Mayor and Council Butch and
Okay.
Chuck, so we can,
Is there any liability for us in requesting these tax documents?
I don't know if there's any liability in requesting now, if someone mishandles them, absolutely, absolutely.
well, thank you. Any more questions? Anything? that,
So what I'm gonna do next, I was gonna say next week. Next work session is come back to the table and, because you guys wanted to look at it, and then I wanna hear your input
Okay,
on this. Okay?
will do.
Hope you really look at it critical because, you know, as I always say, all the businesses we know, the ones that are striving, doesn't necessarily mimic the businesses that are, you know, that are suffering or that are at risk, you know.
Yep.
Just something to think about.
So is there anything else anyone wants to discuss? that we
I would
missed?
just like to let y'all
Uh-oh.
know, I didn't get it on as a discussion item, but at our next work session, I am gonna put on the City of Civility resolution. We can discuss it at a work session if we need to, but I'd also like to go ahead and put it on the agenda for the next meeting. I would like to get that approved before we go to GMA. They had a big write-up in the Georgia Cities magazine about all the cities that have done it, and I'd like to go ahead and get that done. So if anybody has any thoughts or concerns about that, just
How many cities have joined it so far
50,
in the state?
Yeah, that's what was in,
For us?
I think it was about 50 in the magazine, yeah,
Yeah, but if it was in the magazine, it's probably
more than that. 'cause this
60,
was-
90 days old. And just for everybody's knowledge, Freddie Broom sent out a email today saying that there's a free webinar for inclusive leadership and nurturing inclusive climates that will be this Wednesday between 1 and 2 p.m. So if y'all did not get it, let me know and I will be happy to pass that on.
And a lot of times those calls are recorded, so you can watch again if you go look on the website.
Just wanted to mention that on the June 12th meeting, I will not be here again. I'll be traveling.
Which one? June 12th.
So we can push everything through while you're gone?
Apparently.
You have the votes.
So is there anything else?
Well, you can still send a little blurb of the
So,
other thing. just for us.
Seeing no other items for discussion, I will ask for a
Motion
motion
to
to
adjourn.
adjourn in a second.
Second?
All in favor? Raise your hand, Barbara. There we go.